Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
Hey guys, welcome to Plugged In with Spike Leo. This week we are doing an interview with a young man called Janis Hiestand, right? I've been practicing for about 5-10 minutes trying to get the last name, or Hiestand in Australia, which is less exotic. So thanks for coming in, man, and doing this
Thanks
interview.
for having me.
That's all right. I know you're super busy, and I found that this could be really interesting to see what you're doing. You're 23 years old, and why don't you tell us what you're doing? Or maybe I'll start with saying you're traveling the world writing music, which is really, really exciting. You're collaborating with lots of people. That's kind of seems to be the intent. But I want you to tell us, like, what are you doing? What's the goal? What's your roots and your background? How did you start in music, and what's got you into Australia at the moment?
All right. Yeah. Longer story. So I went to university in Zurich to study law because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And after 2 years, I dropped out, and I was like, what am I gonna do now? And at that point, I've been doing music for like 3-4 years.
Sure.
Started in Reason, now switched to Ableton.
And you just start by yourself? Like, did you know what you were doing, or you just...
Yeah, totally. I mean, I first had a look when I was 14 into Fruity Loops, which you probably know.
Sure.
But I didn't really get the hang of it back then. So I put it aside again, and then 3 years later, when I was 17, my sister's ex-boyfriend was a producer, and he worked in Reason, and he introduced me to the whole thing, and that's how it got started. From there, I just did YouTube tutorials and learned by doing.
Sure.
And I never really thought that I would be doing it professionally at any point. I was just like, I think it's gonna be for the rest of my life, but I don't think it will be professionally. Which has kind of changed now.
Yeah, so did you start with any musical background? Like, do your parents do anything musical?
Yeah.
Do you play piano, guitar, anything like that?
Not really. I think music's kind of in the family for sure. Like, my mom's super big Latin music fan, and my dad plays the piano really, really well. And is like a big jazz fan too, and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
My sister sings, so it's sure it is in the family, but nobody does it like for a job or does events or performances or anything like that.
Yeah. So you had a nice versatile background of music being played in the household. Lots
Totally.
of
And
sounds.
I think that really kind of flows into what I do now as well.
Sure. So from Switzerland, at what stage were you like, this is what I want to do? And how did you get to LA? What was the transition there? What happened?
Yeah, that was really crazy. So I didn't expect I would drop out of university, even though I wasn't really big into it. I thought I would pass the second year then.
Sure.
Which I didn't. And then...
that was in law.
Yeah, exactly.
And why were you studying law? Just
because I didn't care about anything else, and law was like the thing that made most sense, kind of. And back then it was kind of the plan to do, to have a good income by doing law jobs, and let aside do music, so I could kind of split this up in the future. So I kind of had music planned out, but not as a main job for some reason, because back then I thought I couldn't do it. It's like too competitive and too oversaturated and stuff like that. So yeah, 2016 in August I dropped out, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna look for like a bank internship or something, because that's pretty not standard, but it's common in Switzerland.
Sure.
And so I applied for some bank internships. I got one audition, or whatever you call it.
Interview?
One interview.
Sure.
And at the same time I applied for the Icon Collective Music School in Los Angeles. They had an online course which would have allowed me to do both at the same time.
Sure.
And then the week after the interview I got turned down, and the day after this I got approved for the music school.
Wow.
So
was it an online course, or you had to go to LA?
that was an online course.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really have had much going for me at that point, and I really just had to get away. And I had actually had the thought of I have to get out for like a half year at that point.
Sure.
But I didn't think I could actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
It would always be like short trips for weekends. I would maybe go to Amsterdam or vacation or something with a friend or stuff like this.
Sure.
But it never lasted.
1 hour here or 1 hour there, you're out of Switzerland.
Yeah,
or
pretty
some other
much.
beautiful place
Yeah.
in Europe.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought that would do it, but yeah.
We don't have that novelty here because we fly from one part of Australia to the next, and it's
Right.
5 hours. So
Yeah, it's totally different.
yeah, cool.
Right.
So did you end up going to LA, or you did the course from Switzerland?
Yeah. So I started the course in Switzerland, but just before the course started, I decided to actually just go to LA because I had nothing to lose really. I was like, what am I even doing here?
Sure.
And I didn't know anybody there, and I literally just went on a plane and got there and made friends there. Got to stay over at a student's place for like 5 weeks. It's like a good friend of mine now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super grateful that he let me stay there and everything. And during that time I was able to find an apartment and kind of build my life there.
Sure. So how did you find, how did you find the courage to just get on a plane, go to LA, not knowing anyone? I remember experiencing the same kind of thing, I think at 21, 22, and I had this initial fear of like getting there, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Right.
I don't know anyone. And
Totally.
I remember calling my parents, and my parents said to me, if you want to come home, you just come home. And that changed everything for me. I remember just kind of like walking the streets by myself, just being comfortable with exploring. I mean, what was the experience for you?
Yeah. Yeah. It was super scary. I was like, what I'm even doing here? This is so crazy. I don't even know where I'm gonna go. I have like 10 days to figure stuff out. But I just had like faith in it, and one like connection led to the next one, and everything kind of figured itself out. I didn't have to do much. I mean, I did what I could, and everything else just kind of came along as I went.
You just trusted in the process, and
Totally, and it totally worked.
So what were some of the great experiences you had in LA? Why was that a good decision for you to make, to just decide to travel and get out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, like the comfort zone thing is major thing. So in Switzerland, everybody's sort of in a bubble. It's not really the right expression, but it's something like a bubble. Like kids in school have a lot of opportunities to go abroad for a semester or something, but they usually don't take it because there's no reason for it. And yeah, it's very self-centered. Like everybody who's rich knows each other, and everybody who's in the city who's like famous or Instagram famous or stuff like this. Right.
It sounds like that kind of thing's everywhere. So
yeah.
I totally understand the idea of like, I just need to get away from it and experience something new. So when you got to LA, like you started collaborating with people there, I imagine. That's kind of when it put you in a position where it forced you to make contact, to network. How did you go about that? How did you meet people? How did you network? How did you start collaborating with other students or artists there?
Back then, yeah. The school did a lot of the work for me. Like it wasn't like...
So you had a place to go and visit the people you were working with.
For the second quarter, I got accepted for on ground, so I could actually hang out with everybody there, and I was like a regular student at that point. But before this, it would just be getting to know all the students, and if you hang out with one, they can introduce you to the next one.
Sure.
And so forth.
It just snowballs from there.
Yeah, totally. In the beginning, I was really insecure and shy, so it wasn't too fast, but that that really quickly changed once I saw that I'm actually pretty good at what I do. I had some point of reference.
And what was the point where you found yourself thinking like, I'm actually good at this?
When I kind of noticed the course wasn't as hard as I thought I'd be, and I noticed I was a lot further than I thought I was, like 50-50. Yeah, it was kind of 2 months, one or 2 months in to moving to LA, so it was kind of February, March 2017.
Sure. And I mean, like, what point did you say to yourself, like, I'm a music producer, or did you feel that it was like, I'm good at this, this is what I want to pursue, this is what I want to do with my life? Did something happen in that moment that made you feel like you have a chance to pursue this? I
think the whole decision of going to LA was the point where I was like, okay, I'm a music producer now, because the whole decision of me saying I do this makes it. I don't need external approval, I need like internal approval, so to speak. I need myself to say yes to this.
Yeah.
I can't wait for people to be like, oh yeah, he proved himself to us now. Like, that's not how I go.
So it's your own intuition and instincts that, you know, you eventually listened to, and you felt like you were worthy of pursuing a career in music production. I guess I want to ask, like, so through this whole process, you have a supportive family, they encourage you, they totally support what you're doing, which is amazing. What are some of the things that you find inspirational? Like, if we go in terms, I want to get to in a minute about what you're doing right now, because I think that's really exciting. But I want to lead up to that by asking, like, what are the things that keep you inspired? How do you keep self-motivated? This is a career where we all spend a lot of time by ourselves. The magnificent thing is we're going to talk about collaboration and how important it is. But what kept you going? What keeps you excited? When you're writing, when you're in a studio, how do you start?
Good question. In general, what keeps me motivated is like that I don't have much else to live for. Like, if music was gone, like I would be gone too the next day. Not because I'm like ungrateful or anything, but just like there's not much else to do for me here. Like, everything I do is kind of for music purposes, and everything that evolves around it. And when I make a song, I usually don't think of what I'm gonna make. I never know what I'm gonna make, and I just get started on one sound. Maybe I start with a synth sound, and while I'm making the synth sound, I have no idea where I'm going. It just kind of makes itself, and then it's like connecting, like making two things, connecting them, make another thing, kind of more like a selection process than a what can I make thinking. You know what I mean?
I do. I teach a lot of young students music production, and I find that the biggest issue that a lot of them face is the internal dialogue going in their head. So basically them telling themselves they're not good enough, they don't know what comes next, and it's a really common thing with a lot of people, which I find so interesting with you and even us doing a collaboration together. I get excited about seeing how other people work. And what I find really admirable about you, man, is you're only 23 and you've already figured out, which I find really important, to just keep things moving. Don't get too caught up on one idea. And even when we were writing something, you're like, okay, that's good, let's move on. For me, I think like finding the right sound is hugely important, but I don't think it matters in which order you do it. You can get all the ideas down and then go back, like you said, and fix the sound, or you can get the sounds, but as long as the process is moving fast. And I think that's great that you've already figured that out, because
super important.
That took me a long time. Yeah.
When did you figure that out?
I was telling you, I feel like I spent a lot of time going through sounds. Like I could listen to a kick and I'd be like, oh, it's not the right kick, going through 100. And it just got to a point where I'm like, you know what, I have the skills now where the first 10 or 15 kicks, or even the first 5 or 10, I can manipulate and make sound good. You can tune it, you can add things, you can use high cut and low cut frequencies and mold it to how you want. So I guess it's also just trusting in your gut, exactly like you said, and listening to what's inside you. What I'm always trying to explain is that we all have taste in music. no matter what you create, there's going to be people who love it or hate it, but you need to trust yourself. The most important is that you love what you're making.
Yeah, you have to be excited, otherwise it's not going to be good.
That's right. So a lot of it, you would say, you know, is writing with your heart and just being true,
sure.
being honest with yourself.
Yeah,
which takes a lot of years for most people to figure out.
Yeah, totally. But you know, it's not really. It's actually pretty basic, and I'm super surprised that not more people have figured this out, or that it is a thing they teach in school or something. Like you look at the most of the successful artists, and a lot of them are super depressed because they think they get to that point in terms of success where they're like, oh, now I've made it, now I'm happy, which never comes. Same as you're in an exam, or you have to prepare for an exam, and it's uncomfortable, but it's never. The moment of uncomfort never comes. It's always just the uncomfort is always in your head. It's not uncomfortable before the exam, doing the exam, or after the exam. It's just the illusion or the
emotions connected to it, the feelings.
Yeah, like you look at it as something that it is not, and it's the same with success. Mm-hmm. It's more like something that is constantly or not. It's either here or it's not here, and you can't go chase it. And it's while you make a song, so many people think it's like the bigger the deal the bigger a deal it is, the better the song is, and it's exactly the other way around. For example, if I have a session with a guitarist and we come up with like an idea and they play like this perfect riff to it the first second, and I'm like, yeah, that's it, and they play it again and they do it differently every time. They want to add more melodies to it, and it gets like more complicated, and it totally loses its essence.
Sure.
I spend like half an hour every time getting them back to what they played the first time. Sure. And then they're like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty good, and I'm like,
yeah, it's the simplicity within the rhythm or the melody. It's interesting. There's a couple of producers called Stargate, who I'm sure you know of.
No.
Stargate, they're some major pop producers in the States, have written ridiculous amounts of hits, etc. Anyway, these guys, I remember they collaborated with some top liner who writes the melodies and everything, and she would literally come in, they would play the instrumental, and she would just get straight on the mic and improvise and just throw melodies down, whatever. But usually the first ideas were the best, and they'd obviously work on them and develop them. But exactly what you're saying, that intuitively the ideas that we first put down are often the best ideas.
Totally.
When we try to overcomplicate it, it starts to lose its essence. I completely agree.
It sounds exactly like what the person is doing. It's trying, it's not doing.
Yeah.
I just had like a pretty great session with a singer in Sydney 3 weeks ago, and we would just go in and he had this guitar riff, and I made some additional production, and he went into the booth, and that was like, you just mumble over it and just go with some melodies, and this totally great song came along.
Yeah.
And for each verse and chorus, we did it the same way. We weren't trying to figure out like, okay, what would fit here. We just let him mumble and bounce ideas back and forth with melodies, and the words came afterwards. And it sounded so good. Like, we were so excited for it, and you know, success and plays and stuff isn't even a topic at this point, and it won't be after it. I have always the best songs that I write are the ones I don't care about. Mm-hmm.
Because you don't have any expectations or other voices coming into your head saying this needs to be the one, this needs to be this.
No, yeah.
It's just making the music organically.
Totally, I enjoyed the process 100%. There's nothing that I want from the song. It's the process is the goal itself.
So what's one of, you know, having said all that, what's probably the most important thing for you when it comes to writing?
Not taking things too serious. Mm-hmm. I do get sometimes into the stress of, oh, it has to be good, or oh, I gotta keep things moving.
Yeah.
If I go into that direction, I shoot myself in the foot big time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about briefly as well, like, you know, we're talking about how great music production is, blah, 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 but it can be a struggle sometimes. I don't know if this is something you want to share, but I remember you mentioned to me briefly, like, you had a time where you had to stop everything? It was difficult for you to write. You just needed a break. What happened? What were you experiencing then?
I'm not sure which time that was. I mean, you know, writer's block comes and goes sometimes, and
have you ever suffered from like feelings of depression or
yeah.
finding it difficult? Like, what am I doing? I mean,
For sure, yeah, and this is like a seesaw, like hardcore. I still have it now. Every day is different. Like some day maybe super awesome, and the next day is like super depressed.
Yeah.
And I just try to get into the middle of the whole thing. Like while I'm feeling depressed, I'll just let myself be depressed. I don't really go into, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, or oh yeah, this is totally like so bad. I just kind of go with it, and if I go with it, I'm not putting any resistance to it, and then usually it's totally okay. It's like, yeah, okay, it's here, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's not, there's nothing bad about feeling bad.
It's so amazing to hear you say that, bro. Like, I'm consistently impressed with the stuff you're saying, because this is stuff that I felt that I didn't find out till I'm later. So for 23, it's super mature, the stuff you're saying, bro. It's really cool. You know, for me, I used to get really upset when I was feeling bad, and I'd overcomplicate it. Why am I feeling this way? What's wrong? What am I doing wrong? And it wasn't until I reckon I got to probably my 30s, if I'm being honest, where you know, my partner, Amit, she said to me, like, you just need to accept your feelings. Like, it's okay to be upset. Just accept it. You don't need to find the reasons, you know, and it will pass. And I found life so much easier since I did that, man.
Yeah.
You just accept it. Like, not every day is going to be amazing. There's going to be days that are hard, and it makes the whole process of just being alive much easier.
Yeah.
Because you're not fighting against yourself.
Yeah, there's no winning in that. It will always be a struggle.
I agree. I feel like we are our own worst enemies, and especially when it comes to creation, it's so important for us to have a clear mind, to be able to do what we love without voices, expectations, happy or sad, to be able to, you know, do what we want to do.
Yeah, totally.
I want to move along a bit because we're getting to time now. What are you doing right now? How did you come about to traveling overseas? What's your intentions? You're traveling the world. You're collaborating with as many people as you want. You're going from country to country to country. What are you doing?
No, yeah, for the people who don't know. So in beginning of this year, I started going from country to country, starting off with London, then Berlin, then Stockholm, now Sydney, and Melbourne. I want to continue in Nashville probably, and I message every studio I can find and every songwriter in town, introduce myself, tell them what I do and if they're up for a meeting. But I don't have any expectations, so I just meet the person and have a talk with them. If something comes up, it will come up by itself. There's no need for me to put any pressure on it. I can just, you know, let it be. And yeah, I just make connections as I go. This is how the whole music industry works anyway. I think my productions are solid enough, but I don't really have the network for it, and in Switzerland there's not much going on with music production.
Sure.
So I had no reason to stay there, and I took a loan from my parents. In the beginning they supported me and everything, but it's not comfortable living off somebody's money, so I was just like, I'm gonna take a loan from them, and if it doesn't work out with the money, I'm just gonna go back to Switzerland, gonna work till I paid everything back, gonna make some extra money, we'll be on the road again. Yeah. But I figure until then I got things going with music, because I make so many good connections, and you never know when they play a role or what's gonna come into the picture, what project's gonna come up. Like,
how important is it to have face-to-face interaction? I mean, we live in a world of social media where we don't need to see anyone eye to eye.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, in terms of trust and making real strong relations, how valuable has that been for you?
That's super valuable, and everybody tells me like how excited they are that I'm coming there to visit them and to meet them face to face. I don't want, because I also don't want anything from that. And everybody, like every human, likes just meeting people and being social. Like that's the most normal thing ever. And yeah, like you say, in the era of social media, so many people are depressed because they don't have the social life they would like to.
You know, it's really sad. My first expectation when you hit me up was like, here we go, a 23-year-old wants to meet up, it's probably going to cancel. Like with it, I already had all these negative connotations, which isn't fair, but it's just in the world we live in now.
Yeah, it's not a judgment, it's just given the experience that you've made, this is your conclusion.
Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised. You're incredibly reliable. You know, I feel really good things for you, bro. I think you're going to do amazing.
Thanks.
And I think the journey that you're doing, it takes a lot of balls, a lot of guts. Not everyone has it. It's not for everyone.
No, for sure.
The creative industry, whether it's photography, videography, dancing, music, whatever it is, they're all incredibly hard. They take a lot of inner strength. And what I'm so impressed with, again, is just like the point you're at such a young age. I mean, I remember being 23, and I don't know, maybe 30 is old for you guys, I don't know. I just think my experiences, some of the things that you're talking about happen much later for me. And some people don't experience that shit until they're 50, 60.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
like my dad and stuff and other people, you know, they might say, oh, you know, you're experiencing that much younger. I love where your mind's at, and I think you're going to have a lot of success, bro.
Thank you.
So, what's the main goal?
Yeah, I don't have a main goal as such. I just produce music as I go. I've been living from week to week for the past 6 months, maybe longer. And I enjoy not knowing what's gonna come next, and I have no idea, you know, who I'm gonna meet the next day or where it's heading. So the narrowest I can or the best I can narrow it down is just making music and making a living off it, and to see what the future holds.
Sure.
I'm not waiting for anything, or I'm not expecting anything, because why can't I just, you know, enjoy what is now? Like, there's no point in me waiting for something.
And what would your last message be for people wanting to make a career for, you know, full-time music or creative?
That's a broad one.
Well, a few words of wisdom, you know. What would you have to tell your best mate or someone if they were trying to pursue it and they were finding it hard?
Most important thing is to enjoy the music you're making, and everything kind of revolves around that. Just while you're making a song and you're excited about it and everything, music will always be good if you make it that way, and that music will always find its way to the people, because you're not waiting for somebody to tell you, oh, that's a cool piece, and while you're writing music, you always have a reference in your head, like, oh, is that person gonna think it's good? Is that person gonna think it's good? You can just kind of do what is you and evolve your style, and there's not much more than can be done around this.
That's amazing, man. Thanks so much for coming in
and
speaking with us. I know you're busy collaborating with half of Melbourne right now, so that's I really appreciate it. Guys, that's Plugged In with Spike Leo this week. Feat Janis Hiestand. I can't remember. I'll go back and try it out. If you guys want to be in touch with Janis, he's traveling around Australia at the moment. If you're a writer or a collaborator, we'll leave his details below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll hopefully see you next week with Plugged In with Spike Leo. All the best. Thanks, bro.